For most of us, when we heard who the new pope was, our reaction was, who? But as we've been learning about Jorge Bergoglio, it's been turning into wow. He combines a Jesuit's intellect with a Franciscan simplicity. But for all the fanfare, the question remains, can he help bring young people back to the church? That's what I'm going to be asking our expert panel, including a young person who was in St. Peter's Square when the new pope emerged. But first, let's take you back to this morning when Pope Francis met with the cardinals, with whom he was locked in the conclave just days ago.
Cari fratelli, forse la metà di noi siamo nella vecchiaia. La vecchiaia è, mi piace dirlo così, la sede della sapienza della vita. I vecchi hanno la sapienza di aver camminato la vita come quel vecchio Simeone, la vecchia Ana al Tempio. E quella sapienza le ha fatto riconoscere proprio a Gesù. Doniamoli questa sapienza ai giovani, come il buon vino che con gli anni diventa più buono. Doniamoli ai giovani la sapienza della vita.
Joining me now in studio is Oriana Bertucci, a campus minister at Ryerson University. And once again, Father Frank Portelli, glad to have you back on the show, the director of the Office of Catholic Youth in Toronto. And joining us via Skype is Auravelia Colomer from Rome, Italy, who was there to take part in this incredible event this past week. Father Frank and Oriana, you're watching on TV, you're waiting for the new Pope to emerge. How much does the particular choice of the Pope matter in terms of the work you do in reaching out to young people? Oriana.
I think there was a lot of excitement just to know who the new Pope was.
Yeah.
Not knowing a lot of the candidates, I think for a lot of young people, other than perhaps Cardinal Collins, Cardinal Ouellet, those that are a little bit closer to home, I think there was more excitement about who it was, not necessarily where did they come from, are they Canadian, are they, what has been their history. I think there was an excitement about, we have not had a Pope for a couple weeks now. We've known for about a month that Benedict was resigning. Just an excitement about who is going to be next.
What about you, Father Frank? Does the choice matter to the work that you do?
I think it always matters because there's a personality that each Pope is going to bring. I think that if you looked on social media, I think Bergoglio was listed on New Advent as 31st in their ranking.
Oh wow, okay.
So those of us that were having conclave parties and things like that, anticipating that it could be a Canadian Pope or it could be this kind of a Pope, I think that it's always one of shock, but a welcome shock and excitement that whoever the Pope may be, we may think that perhaps he's not going to kind of bang the drum that I want him to bang the drum on, whatever particular issue I have. But I think in the end, everybody gets excited because this is our Holy Father, and we must confirm what the Holy Spirit and the cardinals have chosen on behalf of the Church.
Well, certainly the choice mattered a lot to you, Auravelia. You decided to actually go there to bump up your trip previously scheduled to Rome so that you could be a part of this big event. Why did you decide to go?
Well, when I heard that Pope Benedict had stepped down, I thought it would be perfect to go to Easter, to spend Easter with the new Holy Father. But with Easter being so close to the conclave, I couldn't miss the opportunity. So I had to bump it up, and I got a last-minute flight out just over the weekend. So I wanted to be there. I couldn't resist just watching it on TV. I wanted to be there with the people and be the first person to see the smoke and see him come out. So I had to be with the crowd, and I really wanted to see him live.
Now, I understand that you got to St. Peter's Square the same day that the conclave ended. Were there a lot of young people in the square? What was the atmosphere like?
Oh, absolutely. I arrived in the morning, and as soon as I got all my luggage booked and went over to St. Peter's Square, There was thousands of people there. When I got there, it was a lunch period, so it was a bit the lull in between the two periods in the afternoon and morning. But there were still many people. And then as the afternoon picked up around 4 o'clock, more and more people started filling the square. And just around 5 or 6 o'clock, it was thousands of people were already in the square. And by the time just before the announcement, thousands and thousands of people. It was cold and very rainy, so everyone had umbrellas, but there was still a spirit of anticipation, spirit of excitement. And around just after 7 o'clock, when we saw the white smoke, it was screaming. People just screamed, and there was thousands of young people. I really was blown away. Everyone around me was young. And I think you had to be young to be able to withstand the 5 hours in the cold rain, because it was quite difficult the weather to be there. But everyone was so happy. I was beside American students and Italian people, young people. Everyone just, I was surprised. I had a hard time finding people over 30 in my area, but we just screamed and jumped up and down, and everyone moved up towards the front as soon as the smoke went off. And people were just shaking. Everyone wanted to know who's going to be coming out of the curtain, and we could see that there was a bit of movement through the curtains, and we saw shadows, and so it just made everyone even more filled with anticipation and just anxious to see him come out.
Well, it must have been a completely incredible moment to actually be there, once in a lifetime experience. Oriana, Father Frank, the media present a situation regarding the church and young people as very, very dire, suggesting that there aren't young people in the church. To what extent is that true?
I think we just need to look at Twitter. As soon as they announced that we had a new pope, Twitter exploded. You know, Habemus Papam was trending. I think there was a lot of excitement, and I think a lot of young people were really engaged. When the first tweet came out from Pontifex, 9 minutes after I looked, and it had already been retweeted over 2,000 times.
So you don't think this is the octogenarian population on Twitter that's causing this?
Definitely not. I think a lot of young people are engaged. I think in this advent of social media, we get to know the cardinals that are blogging, that are tweeting. I think there's a lot of interest, and I think a lot of young people are really think that this is an important time for the church.
And what about you, Father Frank? What's the state of the church in regards to young people?
Well, I think that first of all, we can't get caught up in a cult of the young. I think that for most of us, if we go to church, we might find that there are a lot of people with gray hair, and I'm getting there, I must say. That most people, that as they age and as they have children and are working for a few years and they gain some wisdom, they start to see that they aren't going to live forever. And so they want to ensure that they'll be around for all eternity with their God. So they start to ask those big questions. I think when people are younger, especially in their teenage years, they start to have identity questions. There's a lot of turmoil going around their own identity. And they start to want something. But what they want is they want something that is unchanging. They want the message of salvation. They're worried about the culture around them and the sin that is being offered to them. And they realize that this is not something that is going to last. And so what they want from the church, and I've seen it time and time again in the work that I'm doing, is that the young people want a church and a teaching that is going to be unchanging. They want truth. They want a community. And I think this is exactly what the church offers. I think it's a myth that there are no young people in church. And you just maybe have to look past the gray hair a little bit, and you'll see that there are families and there are young people there in church.
They're there. Well, a lot has been made of some of the particular gestures of the new Pope, going back to the residence where he was at before the conclave, to pay his bills, taking the bus from the Sistine Chapel back to his residence. Why do you think there is this great interest in poverty? Because I'm thinking about my generation, and we don't aspire to take public transit. We want to own a car. What's so attractive about poverty? What do you think, Auravelia?
I think that it displays someone who has a desire to live out virtue and poverty. It displays that someone who goes beyond themselves and is really committed to humility. And I think that the people want someone who is humble, and we want to look to someone who will set an example. And, you know, it might be hard for us to make certain decisions, but when we see someone else living that out, it challenges ourselves to think beyond what we do and try to do things that are more self-giving and better for everyone else and not just ourselves. So I think it just again, just having someone who can set an example and allowing us to follow in their footsteps.
Do we see a parallel here with some of the interest in the Occupy movement, sort of a reaction against the consumerism of our times?
Use the example of everybody wanting to own a car. I think although that we perhaps have a desire for that, or culture says that we have a desire for that, there is a part of us that knows, I think deep down, that that will not sustain us, that in the end that will not fulfill us. So to see somebody who is an example of that humility, who is that witness, in some ways I think that's very inspiring, because we recognize that God alone is the one that will sustain us, and He's demonstrating that for us.
These are things that ordinary people do, and we're making a huge deal that the Pope actually sort of humbled himself to do it. But I think what he's trying to say is, this is ordinary. These are things that ordinary people do.
Why should it be a big deal?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So maybe he showed up to order his own coffee and people go crazy. My goodness, the Pope did that.
Yeah.
But I think what he's trying to say is, he's just trying to say, I unite myself with the simple. So just to be simple. So that's a great example for priests and bishops everywhere, that if the office goes to their head a little bit, I think everybody says we can relate to a bishop, priest, deacon, anybody, including the Pope, who is humble, who is simple.
Well, I'm going to ask you all more about the significance of this papal election for the Church and its work to bring young people into the Church. But first, we're still getting to know Pope Francis, and we've heard about how he preaches, but what about how he prays? One of his first tasks as Pope was venerating Mary at the Basilica of St. Mary Major. We'll show you the new Pope at prayer in just a moment.
Let us know your perspective. Email us at perspectives@saltandlighttv.org or reach us by mail, Perspectives at Salt and Light Television, 114 Richmond Street East, Toronto, Ontario, M5C 1P1, or call us toll-free at 1-888-302-7181. Let your perspective be heard.
Back in studio with Oriana Bertucci, campus minister at Ryerson University, Father Frank Portelli from the Office of Catholic Youth, and Auravelia Colomer. Auravelia, do you think that this Pope will have a unique ability to evangelize Latin America?
I think it's going to be very, very special for sure. He's going to be a very loved man. We're very proud to have him as the first Pope from Latin America, the first Pope from the Americas. And I was surrounded by people from Latin America in the square, and I couldn't believe it. We were surprised, and I think it will make a difference, because we'll be able to see someone who can directly relate to us, someone who is knows our culture, has lived out our culture, and with 40% of the world's Catholics being from Latin America, it's really encouraging to see someone who is in this position, who is like us, and I think that it's going to help draw more Latin Americans back to the Church. It's very much a part of our identity. Our Catholic faith is ingrained within us, but I think there are some influences from secularism and evangelicals getting into Latin America, and I think this is going to maybe help them reconsider to go back to the Mother Church, and they see someone who is like them, and I think it definitely will help Latin America, and it will help continue to re-evangelize the continent.
But Oriana, Father Frank, Auravelia mentioned the challenge with evangelicalism, Pentecostalism really growing. The challenges facing the Church in Europe and North America are different. Do you think that his appeal will also be seen here? Will he be able to have the same kind of outreach in a very different environment?
I think one of the appeals that he brings is also that he's very much a pastor.
Okay.
So he hasn't been working in Rome over the past few years. He's been in the trenches, in the fields with the people. And I think that understanding of what life looks like in the urban centers, what life looks like with the people in the pews. I think he will bring that to his papacy, and I think that's very important.
Do you think, Father Frank, that the new evangelization looks similar in Latin America than it would here?
I think that just building on what Auravelia said, the mother church especially in South America and Latin America has been primarily one of Catholicism. And I think in Canada that can be seen if we see it from a Quebec point of view. But in the U.S. has been these, even American churches have sprung up. And in the United States, it's been one of competition right from the beginning. A lot of Protestant denominations and different Christian sects, and then Catholicism. And so the Catholics have had to maintain their identity in some way in opposition to these other Christian sects. In Latin America and South America, it's been Catholics being kind of eroded by the kind of dynamism of the evangelical and the Pentecostal church. And I think what Pope Francis is trying to come back to is just one of simplicity. Like I was saying, in some places clericalism is rampant, and he's going to say, just follow my example, be simple, be humble. And in other places, if you listen to his first homily, it's pretty doctrinally certain where the man stands. And I think that's going only to shore things up in the U.S. and in Canada as well.
People are really going to be paying attention to what the Pope does in terms of social media. Auravelia, what direction do you think that Pope Francis should take in terms of social media, his use of Twitter, Facebook? What do you think?
I think definitely following the tradition of Pope Benedict, who first got on Twitter. I think he'll continue to reach out to young people through social media. It's important. It is a vehicle of communication. And I know when I was in the square, everybody wanted to tweet. Everybody wanted to put it on their Facebook. But there was so many thousands of people there that the signals weren't working. And so everyone's like, oh, no, it's not working. It's not working. Even though we were present there, we wanted it to be communicated through the other mediums to get to around the world. So I think it's going to be important for him to continue doing that. And I think he will. I think he's going to be doing that, and he'll have people around him to help him navigate the waters. And it's nice that he'll be able to do it in different languages as well. There's the English account, the French and Spanish accounts. So we look forward to that.
And Oriana, what would you like to add to that?
I think there's so much information out there, and we've seen this week in the media how many different opinions and perspectives you can take. So challenging others to take an authentic and a well-formed and educated view, and to share that on different mediums.
I would add to that I think, as we've seen the Holy Father in these few days being able to interact with the ordinary people, just in the ordinary things that everybody has to do. But I think as time goes on, he's going to feel maybe I don't know if overwhelmed, but probably feel the burden of office and the schedule. And I think through Twitter, it may be a way for him to reconnect or to connect with the people that he may feel separated from. So as World Youth Days and different trips and being ahead of a state, that kind of the schedule, when he opens up his calendar and sees what's before him, perhaps social media might be a way for him to, tweet pictures of something happening in the Apostolic Palace, and people say, I didn't know that about the Pope, or sort of keep that connection to the individual through social media.
And what are you going to do, Father Frank, to take advantage of all this media interest right now in the Catholic Church as the director of the Office of Catholic Youth? How do you harness that?
Well, I want to say that I opened up a Twitter account myself.
Oh, you did?
I did, on the day, just to mark the day that the Holy Father, who took my name, Francis, I know you're Father Frank, but I'm going by Father Francis now. So
very popular now.
Yeah,
yes,
it's
trending.
It's trending. Yeah. So opened up a Twitter account, and I think it's just kind of all this hype and all the popularity and the media attention to the Holy Father. I think it's just important that just to follow up on that, and again to bring people back to the rootedness of Jesus Christ. Is that these things are happening and the world is watching. But when the interest fades away or turns to something else, just to keep to the essential principles of who we are and what we believe in.
And now we know that John Paul II gave us World Youth Days. Pope Benedict gave us the UCAT. Auravelia, what kind of catechetical or evangelistic tool do you think is needed from this Pope?
I'm not sure what he'll come out with. given his Jesuit background and his Jesuits known to be missionaries, I think I'd like to see him really encourage the message of missionary identity. I think we've kind of sometimes forgotten that in the church, that we need to be evangelizing all the time, whether it's in our workplace, with our family and friends, and bringing it back to know, love, and serve God in our church and our community. So I hope that he really encourages that, the missionary identity within all of us within the church.
Now, regarding World Youth Days, the Pope told the clergy from Argentina not to come to his inauguration to spend that money that they would have spent for the poor. But do you think young people from Canada in the ministries that you're both involved with, Oriana, Father Frank, are going to go see him in Rio de Janeiro this year?
I'm going with a group to Rio this summer.
Oh, you're already going?
Yes,
Okay.
we were already planning to
Yeah.
go. So when the announcement of the new Pope came, I think that's just a more added excitement. One of the things I would like to see, though, you mentioned about World Youth Days and then the UCAT, is some form of a social outreach. So I think we've had a great catechetical tool in the UCAT, an opportunity for evangelization within the World Youth Days, but now really a social outreach, a social justice ministry. I think we've already seen a little bit of that humility that Pope Francis embodies, but really perhaps living that out in something a little more concrete.
Father Frank?
I think it's still a mystery. I know we're in, what is it, day 2 or day 3 of the pontificate of Pope Francis. And we find that, with World Youth Day, John Paul, this really spoke to his personality. He really wanted to reach out to everybody, including the young people. He wanted to be close to the young people. And I think Pope Benedict, it was that he's a teacher at heart and a scholar. And so he wanted to really put those things out there, the catechism, and then particularly the UCAT for the youth.
So it corresponded with his strengths.
Exactly. And I think that we still have to let Pope Francis let his personality unfold, even for him to come to some understanding of what this office is and how he appropriates that. And I think that he's shown already that he has a few curveballs that he's going to throw at the world, which is beautiful. I think it's just great. It shows the dynamism of our church, really.
Now, we're all out of time, but we always want to give the last word to the Word of God. And the scripture passage today is from Paul's letter to the Ephesians. The gifts that Christ gave were that some should be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers, to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ. Final thoughts, Oriana.
I think that just speaks to me in a role in ministry to help others to engage in that and to find the way that they can live that out as an apostle, as a pastor, as an evangelizer, as someone who proclaims and is a strong witness of the gospel.
Father Frank.
I think it just speaks to me that each person has their own gifts, and it's just to bring your giftedness, not to be something inauthentic, but to bring an authenticness to just animating your Christian faith in whatever way comes to you naturally.
And your thoughts on the passage, Auravelia?
I think that, to me, it says that we've all been given very special gifts, and God intends us to use those gifts. They're not meant to be hidden away. They're meant to reach out to others and to be selfless with those gifts and to do as much as we can with what we've been given, and to really be proud of that and cultivate our faith through those gifts.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. Oriana Bertucci from the campus ministry at Ryerson University, Father Frank Portelli, the director of the Office of Catholic Youth in Toronto, and Auravelia Colomer, who is joining us via Skype from Rome. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
And we want to hear your perspective as well. The best way to do so is to go to our Facebook page. That's at facebook.com/saltandlighttv. And for more coverage of the papal transition, go to our website. That's at saltandlighttv.org. Thanks for watching, and remember to keep praying for our new Holy Father.